It's Dave's celebration here on OTB Sports for all the Liverpool fans, and I don't know what the Man United fans and the Man City fans are thinking out there. If you want to share your views with us, you can use the hashtag OTB AM on Twitter, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream that we stream every morning. Or of course, you can always just WhatsApp us 087 9180 180. Now, obviously, we've been a part of this season every Sunday. We've been broadcasting live Premier League games right across the year, and as we have done for essentially the last 18 years here on Off the Ball. Let's run through some of the biggest moments from across the season. We've had plenty of games. Let's go back to October when we spoke to the Liverpool captain Jordan Henderson after his goal helped Klopp's side to beat Spurs 2-1 at Anfield.
Where are you on goal scoring? Is it a part of your game you're at the start of every season thinking I need to score a few more, or is it a part of your game where you're going, you know what, I have a very different role in this team?
Yeah, it's always nice to chip in, with goals, but at the end of the day, for us, it doesn't matter who scores, as the forward player scores all the goals and we win games. That's the most important thing. I think it's nice for other players to contribute, of course, but first and foremost, it's about doing my job, my role within the team, and hopefully, now and again, I can chip in. But the most important thing is performance, making sure that I'm performing for the team and everybody else is performing and winning games. And
a lot of games like that now where teams sit back, defend, particularly with Tottenham getting the early goal. Do you feel as a group you're far better able to deal with that type of team now than maybe 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago?
I think we reacted in the right way. It's not easy going a goal behind early on, but we knew we still had a lot of time left. And I thought we reacted so well, and that's down to mentality. We've got to keep going, keep fighting right until the very end, and that's something we've done for a while now. So we need to keep that going right until the end of the season. And like I said, hopefully we can continue on that form.
David Myler in the background there, obviously on CoCom that day, and Myler and Henderson are best mates. We're hoping to hear from Myler a little bit later on as well. So let's hear from Adam Lallana. Kind of a forgotten man of the season, but did actually get some game time. He spoke with Nathan after they beat Sheffield United to go 13 points clear at the top in early. We knew in January, 13 points clear in January. We knew what was going to happen at that stage. We kind of knew from October, November when Man City started to splutter, and there was no sign of Liverpool spluttering, that this was going to be Liverpool's year. Owen Sheehan called it here on this programme as a matter of interest, accusing the Liverpool fans of the greatest year since Kerry. And he was obviously capable of spotting that because, he's an expert at it. But anyway, here is Lallana speaking with Nathan.
You've been here throughout Klopp's reign. When you look at the standard this group have got to throughout 2019, winning the Champions League, can you believe the level you've got to over the space of the last 4 years?
Yeah, I can, because, I work with these lads day in, day out, and I see how committed and how much work's put into it. You perform like that and as consistent as that, not through luck, through hard work, dedication, long hours, and it's all worth it.
Yeah. What is, you've obviously worked with some great managers at international level, at club level, with Maurizio Pochettino, people like that. You're probably at a stage again where you can look at managers a bit differently and try and take little tips and things from coaches. Can you put your finger on what it is Klopp has? Is it just man management? Is it a bit of everything?
Yeah, he's got a bit of everything. He's very intense, but he can demand that out of his players with keeping them on side. He makes us believe that to be more intense means we've got more chance of being successful, and you see that out there with what the lads put into every game. And yeah, we might have to sacrifice different aspects of our life for that and to be at that level, but it's really worth it.
We spoke quite a bit before the game about Jordan Henderson, and David was telling us about the journey he's been through and some of the setbacks he's come back from. He was man of the match tonight. I know you're very good friends with him. The level he's got to this season, have you seen him play better?
I don't think I've seen him play as consistently as good as this in his career. He's a selfless captain at the end of the day, and he's reaping his rewards by lifting all the trophies that are coming his way now, and he won't want to stop there. He plays 6, he plays 8, he sacrifices himself a lot of the time for this team, and it's only rightly so that he's reaping the rewards and the recognition that for me should have been coming his way for years now.
That's Adam Lallana there. Interesting, talking about sacrificing stuff in our lives to achieve this. And he's not somebody who's had a whole heap of game time this year. I'm still trying to check. It's 15 games in the Premier League. That's enough to get a medal these days. They kind of give out medals to almost anybody they want to. It's not like the old days where you had to hit a certain number of... I mean, it is still like the old days. You still have to play enough games to achieve it, but they also have loads of medals because they're really rich and it's not like left in a box the way it used to be in the Graham Souness here. And we'll hear a little bit about that from Souness later on OTB Sports Radio, which is on our Liverpool special day today. But it was interesting to hear Lallana, who hasn't had much game time and who would have obviously thought of himself as somebody who was, you know, should be in the team and should be playing international football, and happy to kind of subjugate himself for those moments of game time. And maybe that's what the magic of Klopp is. It's not just in getting the star strikers to play well week in, week out, but it's in making sure that when Adam Lallana is needed and is called upon, he's actually going to be decent for the team. 0879 180 180 is the number here if you want to get in touch with us this morning. So we brought you some of the Jordan Henderson stuff. We brought you Adam Lallana. Let's go back to that mid-January. Liverpool welcomed Manchester United to Anfield in the build-up to the game. Here's Nathan talking about it with Joe.
Yeah, thanks very much, Joe. Liverpool's march towards the first league title in 3 decades brings them face to face with their greatest rivals. For the last 30 years, Liverpool had to look on as Manchester United dominated English football. 13 league titles, putting them very much on the perch at the top of the English game. The gap has never been greater, and the gap this season is very much in Liverpool's favour. 27 points is the gap they hold ahead of Manchester United, ahead of this match. 13 points clear at the top of the table with 2 games in hand. Now it's a matter of when, not if, Liverpool win that 19th league title.
Didn't hear a word Nathan said there. Nathan, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
A raucous atmosphere from Anfield before the game against Manchester United back in January. We couldn't really hear you because the crowd was just too loud.
Yeah, and it just brings home maybe what could have been this week for Liverpool with the crowds. And there've been so many nights like that over the last 18 months. It's been a real privilege to be there a lot over the last few seasons as Jurgen Klopp turned this around and turned them into the juggernaut that they've become. And the connection that's there between the supporters and the players and the team, it is a real thing. I think at first people thought that this was an imaginary thing that Liverpool supporters just dreamed about. And you think back to that day when they drew at West Brom and Jurgen Klopp brought all the players over to the Kop and they all lined up and they bowed. And literally it felt like the world was laughing at them, that this guy was trying to make something happen that just wasn't there, that was make-believe. But I think that was the start of the Liverpool supporters, maybe, I won't say trusting Klopp, but thinking...
When was that? So what season was that?
This was this about a year into it? About a year into it with Jurgen Klopp. And it's worth remembering that, so it was 2017 they last lost at Anfield, which was the game against Crystal Palace. And I touched on that day and games around then a lot, and the lack of trust that the Liverpool supporters had in their team. It was a difficult place to play if you weren't a really strong character in that Liverpool side, because if you made a mistake, they got in your back. Even if you went in front and you made a mistake, they were getting on your back. And there was a distinct lack of trust in that team to be able to hold on. So that I distinctly remember that day against Crystal Palace. They went in front, Christian Benteke equalises, and there's murmurings in the crowd. There's this nervousness of, we've been here before. They looked at that back four. They looked at Mignolet. They looked at Lovren, Klein, Makhmadou Sakho, players like that, and thought, we just don't trust them. And that was hindering Liverpool for many, many years. And he went out and he spotted where the problems were and turned it around. And well, listen, he's obviously turned it around to an extent I think that nobody could ever have imagined. And it's just been an incredible place to be around match day for the last couple of years.
In one of the pieces he did last night with Souness, in the middle of it, he just said, yeah, we've been able to have a lot of influence on the players we've been bringing in. And it was a funny thing to just kind of inject into the middle of it, but it kind of echoed something that John Giles said to you last night about, and you've just made the same point, about the team was not full of trustworthy people. He didn't have a centre-back. He didn't have a goalkeeper. It took him a year to get... it took him 2 years to get a goalkeeper. It took him a year to get a centre-back. When he got the players, it was like watching Arsenal under Wenger, except watching the issues be diagnosed and then fixed. It was like, this is a team that's playing really good football, and when the problem occurs, Wenger would let it go on and go on and go on. Klopp goes, well, that's a bit of a problem, and I'm getting rid of it and getting a better player than the one they already had.
Yeah, and not just a better player, but some of the best players in the world. So the obvious one was the centre-back problem that's been a consistent issue for Liverpool since Jamie Carragher retired, and even before then, and probably finding a partner for Jamie Carragher. And it was the power of his personality, by all accounts, that brought Virgil van Dijk to the club. Van Dijk could have gone to Chelsea. He could have gone to Manchester City. Everything you hear is that he could have gone to Manchester City for more money. But that Klopp, once he had met Van Dijk, that was that he realised you can go to Liverpool, and this is a club actually where they could build a statue of you if this goes well. And maybe he's been right, because the impact Virgil van Dijk has made, if that continues over the next 3 or 4 years, they may well end up building a statue. It obviously hasn't been flawless, in that the goalkeeper issue did take too long to fix. Potentially cost them another European Cup by sticking with Loris Karius through that year. He wasn't the man to replace Simon Mignolet. They signed Alisson a couple of days later. If that transfer had happened the previous summer, the previous January, maybe they're here as 2-time European champions and Premier League champions. But you're picking holes. But everywhere, there's been the big money signings that have delivered and have to deliver when you're at a club of Liverpool side, but also there's the players he's developed. So you see the two of them and their importance, but then it's the two fullbacks. So Andy Robertson comes from Hull for 8 million. You'll talk to David Myler later about the type of character he was and whether he ever saw him getting to this level where he's arguably the best left back in the world. And likewise, Trent Alexander-Arnold comes in against Manchester United back in 2017, gets ripped apart by Anthony Martial that first day. Could be just another decent young player. Turns out again, he's developed and he has the confidence, and he's become this key part of Liverpool's side, controlling games from right back, which we never thought we'd see. So in every different way that you need a manager to perform, whether it's developing the talent you have or signing the right type of character, he's done it. And you mentioned Adam Lallana. It's keeping everybody. It's not a huge Liverpool squad. There's only 17, 18 players that are there. And certainly if you're in, you're in. And if you're out at times, you're out. And we've seen that with the likes of Xherdan Shaqiri, who have made impacts in previous seasons. But then he obviously just didn't think they're of the standard and has barely been seen since. But Lallana's one of them. I think he has the character. He's obviously very good friends with Jordan Henderson and knows what the club is all about, that he's wanted to stay involved. And again, he's made that impact. Got that goal against Manchester United earlier in the season to keep that unbeaten run going.
Yeah. Phil Egan, good morning to you. How you doing?
How you doing, Ger? How you doing, Nathan?
What's it like, Phil?
Do you know what? I don't think it really sinks in because it's been so long, and I watched a lot of the reaction stuff last night on TV, and obviously it was up early this morning. So that in mind, I kind of, maybe curtail things, and maybe I'll wait till later on, and you can start watching back some of the footage, some of the tributes. I know Off the Ball put up lovely montage, and I'm sure Jurgen Klopp would approve of Metallica being the soundtrack to it as well. And just touching on what Nathan said there, like Jurgen Klopp, I still go back to 2015 when he got the job. I just couldn't believe Liverpool got him, because timing is everything in football. And Brendan Rodgers had just come off a 1-1 draw in the Merseyside derby. Liverpool obviously decided, look, we need something else here, because the 2013-14 season was brilliant and all, but you knew as soon as it was over, that was it, because Suarez was gone. And in the past, Liverpool teams, even 2009, Xabi Alonso went, and the teams have just kind of regressed. But with Klopp, it's just got better and better. And there's just been, I think what's so impressive about it as well is with disappointment. Like, you think back to the Champions League final, the disappointment, the humiliation for Loris Karius that night, and for Liverpool to concede goals in that manner. They come back the next season and they win the Champions League. Last season, everyone's saying, oh yeah, Liverpool are the greatest team not to win a Premier League title because they've got 97 points. And then they go on this season and it looks like they're going to better the 97 points. So he pretty much turns disappointment, he turns it into a positive and just gets more fire in the belly. And, there is potential to keep going with this squad. That's the beauty of what Jurgen Klopp has instilled in this team.
Klopp made that point himself, actually, Nathan. He was saying that, when I got here, this wasn't a team of winners, and now all of a sudden they actually have achieved that. So they, when you were, I think, talking with Jordan Henderson back then, there was this kind of sense of like, do you actually still believe that you're going to be able to do more than you were doing last year? And until they actually do it, they don't know that they're capable of doing it, because you know how close they went last season, and you can imagine what kind of a kick in the balls it is for a group to break every single record that the club has ever had at a record-breaking club like Liverpool and still finish second against a team like Man City. So to come back and do that, that's an unbelievable sign of character.
And it wasn't a given. It wasn't a given because the Liverpool history of the last quarter of a century is they go close and then they fade away and something goes wrong. So even though they got to 97 points, I think most Liverpool supporters thought maybe we missed our chance. Manchester City aren't going to dip. They're going to need to get 100 points and they're never going to get 100 points. Yet somehow they've got even better. Somehow. I'm not quite sure how they've managed it, but they've been even better. And I could go all stats nerd and reel off 100 different stats that show just how brilliant they have been this season and how relentless they've been. And they've changed the entire culture of Liverpool because it was a history of watching them over the last 20, 25 years of near misses, of drama. Like, that's the one thing. So much of Liverpool since they were knocked off their perch has been dramatic moments of success, but generally an overriding feeling of disappointment. Like, that's gone. They've just become this relentless killing machine that they go out and do it again and again. And in a way, I'm delighted that they performed the way they did against Crystal Palace. A game they would always be expected to win, but the way things have gone over the last 3-4 months, questions start asking, you quickly forget, and they'd had that defeat against Watford. They'd lost to Atletico Madrid. Well, why are they actually that good? And then they put in a performance like that. Crystal Palace didn't touch the ball in the Liverpool penalty area for the entire match. It was just relentless aggression. And you mentioned Metallica there. There was a time it was seen as rock and roll football under Klopp, that it was 100 miles an hour, which again tapped into a certain Liverpool emotion of just loving the excitement and the drama and the thrill of it all. But it's a very different Liverpool side over the last 18 months because teams set up differently. So it's not 100 miles an hour. It's real calm, composed, just suffocating the life out of teams, a very different tactical style. And he recognised that as well. And maybe at times Klopp doesn't get enough recognition for tactically how he sets them up. People would still question the midfield as to whether they're good enough. Are they Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba? He wants his midfield to do a certain type of job, a Jordan Henderson type player who will get the job done. And it's been like, it is insane what they have managed to achieve over the last 18 months. I go back, people look for pointers, and the obvious games are the matches against Manchester City that consistently over the last 2 or 3 years have been some of the best games in world football. And the first time I probably thought Liverpool were there was certainly the 4-3, where Manchester City they're the benchmark. They're arguably the best team in Europe at times, and Liverpool are 4-1 up and killing them, and you think they're here. But actually, the game that turned it for me was the match about 18 months ago against Everton, when Divock Origi scored that fluke, you may call, in the very last minute. Liverpool hadn't really played well last season. They were sort of meandering along. They were getting results. Nothing had really clicked into gear. And there was something about that moment that I've never heard a noise like it at Anfield. I've never heard a reaction, the sheer shock of it happening. And that just seemed to kickstart this team into the run they've gone on, which is, one defeat this season, two defeats in their last 70 matches in the Premier League. Like, this is no flash in the pan, and there is no reason why they're going to go away. In fact, the way the football calendar is going to go, like, he's in a brilliant position for the next couple of months and how he can rotate players and be ready to go again in September.
Well, that's what I was thinking. You're saying that they might break last season's points tally or go even further. I'm not sure. I think that they could legitimately just shut up shop now and start planning for next season, and no one will bat an eyelid because we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So maybe the right thing to do is to rest a bunch of players. I think, in a weird way, Phil, there was a sense that around the time of their exit from the Champions League, that they had run themselves into the ground a little bit. And this little break has actually... This is based on the evidence of the Crystal Palace match. So, and maybe I'm reading too much into it because the Everton game wasn't very good, but the Crystal Palace game was absolutely sensational, and Palace obviously have nothing to play for. So let's wait and see exactly where their form is. But there was a bit that they were coming off a peak for the last 2 months of the season before it finished up. And there was just a little bit of question about their form. The break seems to have done them good. Another break heading into next season will be an absolutely sensational opportunity for them to rest those bodies and to go again for another 24-month period.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they lost 4 games out of 6 before the break, and as disappointing as the exit was to Atletico Madrid, Liverpool were actually sensational that night. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain played the game of his life for Liverpool, and just the fine margins at that elite level, that I think if Alisson's playing in goal that night, Liverpool get the job done. And that was a big... I remember when we were in the office on the Friday before that game, and it was announced Alisson wasn't going to be playing at the weekend and Adrian was probably going to be starting against Atletico. I remember thinking that's a game changer because, when we mentioned Karius, Liverpool have had such problems with goalkeepers down the years, and finally they have this steady hand in Alisson, and he obviously wasn't there for the Atletico game. But yeah, the break came at a good time. The Everton game, a lot was made of it, but the last 3 years it's been a really horrible game. It's finished 0-0, and even the one 4 years ago took an injury time goal from Sadio Mane. So when Liverpool go to Goodison, it's never pretty, and that's what happened last Sunday. And yeah, I think it was important that they basically showed everyone why they're the best team in the Premier League on Wednesday night when they absolutely dismantled Crystal Palace. The Crystal Palace team, who had made things awkward for Manchester City. They'd obviously won at Old Trafford this season. They were coming off the back of keeping a few clean sheets. And, Liverpool fans will know how Roy Hodgson sets up, because unfortunately he set up the same way when he was the Liverpool manager. But they obviously destroyed them. And the goals were just so clean and just epitomised everything that's good about this Liverpool team. Now, in terms of what happens between now and the start of next season, you look at Nico Williams came on. Does he give Williams a bit more game time? Harvey Elliott, does he say, right, here's a chance for you to get some more first-team football? I think what he'll do is he'll mix and match, where he might have 7 of his regulars in there, and he'll play a few of the squad players to see how they get on when they're playing with the better players. And then what does he do in the transfer window? I think it was pretty much there to see at Goodison that they need a backup left back, because without that natural width, Andy Robertson, isn't injury prone, but if he isn't there, it obviously takes something away. And obviously Salah as well. What happened playing Minamino out on the right? You want that left-footed player to play, because obviously then it creates more space for Trent Alexander-Arnold down the right. So they've got a few things. I'd like to see them get a new goalkeeper as well, because if Alisson is picking up injuries, he might miss more games. Adrian is just not good enough. If you look at some of the best teams, and you look at, say, even United have Sergio Romero. They've got Dean Henderson as backup. You need a good backup goalkeeper. It's hard to get them, because if you get a young lad, he's not got the experience. If you go for an older head, then what kind of quality can you get? Because they know they're going to be sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Klopp and kind of just get into the difference he makes. Back in 2009, Simon Cooper and Stefan Szymanski produced a paper essentially on the back of what I think had gone on at Chelsea and the influence that money had. And the economic theory was that managers actually don't matter. What matters is your wage bill. And that ultimately ends up deciding where you end up in the table. And no doubt Liverpool have a very high wage bill, but it seems to me that actually the raw economic data does not fully appreciate the impact or importance of somebody like Jurgen Klopp. And you talked about the influence on Robertson and the influence on even on Jordan Henderson. It seems to me like Klopp has put in as good a managerial shift in the 5 years since he's arrived as any other manager that I can think of in world football history.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore it. And listen, if you want to get into wage bills and money spent, like Liverpool have done that as well, and they should be there competing and on the tails of Manchester City. It's that transformation from being on the tails of them to being 23 points clear and winning a title with 7 games to go, and that relentlessness that he's brought. The one word that comes up again and again from Klopp, or about Klopp, is intensity. And there's the Klopp we saw on Sky last night again, where there's that emotional side, which he often, I think, lets out in those television interviews. And there's the jovial, there's the fun side. He's the guy you would love to go for a pint with. He's the guy who will be good crack and will be a good energy and would have brilliant stories, and have heard from lots of people that he is very much that guy when he's off duty. But all the players, when you ask them for a word to describe Jurgen Klopp, it is intensity. And I've seen that in post-match interviews. There's a no-nonsense side to Jurgen Klopp when it comes to the game and when it comes to the message he wants to get to his players. And you can tell by the way they play, by the way the players who came on, Phil touched on some of the young guys who came on against Crystal Palace, that the way they were running around, the energy they put in the last couple of minutes, they knew that there's a standard now set that's been there. It was a club of excuses for so many years, Liverpool, that there's no excuses there. And that is the power of his personality.
They were Mayo, basically.
Imagine growing up as a Mayo-born Liverpool supporter. Imagine the pain that you would suffer over 30 years. It's funny, I remember Liverpool beating Everton in the 89 Cup final, and it's been a big deal. I've no memory of Liverpool winning the league in 1990, because I presume, actually, it wasn't that big a thing. It was not something that stood out in my house. It was just, like, this is going to continue forever. This is the path you've gone down. It's It's just going to be dull, boring success for the rest of your life. Turned out it was a life of misery that Liverpool supporters of my age have chosen, and that's why it was so great actually to see last night the celebrations. And it's funny, I would say every single Liverpool supporter on my phone, I would know them, because there's some sort of weird connection of over the years of shared misery, shared pain, and for those people to see what it meant to them, and even to watch the television coverage, like to see what it meant to Jamie Carragher, considering he gave so much and didn't get there, that actually he can take a joy from this. For Kenny Dalglish and like Graham Souness, who's done it all, who's been there, and for him to still have that connection. And I'm delighted for so many people that they get this moment. So many Irish people who travel over, and I've got to know a lot of them over the last few years. You'd run into them at the airport and spend enormous amounts of money going. And listen, you can criticise, and people will often say Irish supporters and Liverpool connection. Like, it's nonsense. It's absolute bullshit. These people get it. There's a strong and emotional connection there with this club, as you would get if they lived on the Anfield Road, for so many Liverpool supporters. And I think that has even grown, and you have to give the club credit, that has grown, that connection between Liverpool and Ireland over the last couple of years. Unfortunately, because of the tragedy of Sean Cox and the way the club has responded, and we saw that again last night. And yeah, you're thinking of his family, and you're thinking of so many people who were, I just know, enjoyed last night so much and have waited so long for that moment.
Yeah, and it was great to see the hierarchy of the club actually including Sean Cox in their tweets at full time as well. Phil, I know you've got to go. Will you be setting off fireworks in your back garden? Is that your plan for the weekend?
Yeah, I think my back garden could be flooded, by the way, because there was so much rain this morning when I was woken up. So obviously I haven't had much sleep, and I was woken up by thunder and lightning, and the drive-in was interesting. But no, do you know what? I'll probably just sit back, put the feet up, and maybe watch. I'm sure there's going to be some great footage now over the next few days of, you know, how it all happened, like the journey of when Klopp took over, the turning points, that sale of Philippe Coutinho to obviously finance the Van Dijk and Alisson.
Yeah, what a great
deals.
move! What a great
move!
move!
Yeah, and you know, like, for the few years that we were doing Premier League Live, there was certain games. I remember Jason McAteer was part of our commentary team that day. Liverpool lost 2-0 away to Hull, and the text coming in like, you know, this isn't going to happen. Like, Lucas is playing as a centre half, and Umar Niasse scores a breakaway goal, and you're just thinking, you know, is Jurgen Klopp really going to be able to turn this around? And just so much anger coming through the text line. And Klopp just, you know, he kept saying, just, you got to be patient. All those finals they lost, but in reality, a lot of those finals, Liverpool were underdogs. Apart from last season's Champions League final, you could argue maybe about the Europa League final against Seville, but when they're playing the likes of Real Madrid or in League Cup finals against Manchester City, they were underdogs, and they had overachieved to get to the final. They couldn't quite get over it. Yeah. But just the fact that they won it last season, and I think psychologically as well, the fact that they went toe-to-toe with City and just finished a point behind them, put the pressure on City this season, basically to say, if you slip up, we are going to be there. And look what it's done. City 23 points behind, and I'd say even if Real Madrid were watching that game last night, they'd be rubbing their hands thinking, you know, we could turn this Champions League tie around against Man City.
Phil Egan, good stuff. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
from Phil Egan to Phil Thompson. Phil, good morning to you. How are you?